This is not the first time Burkina Faso has dared to defy the global order. Nearly 4 decades ago, in the heart of West Africa, a fearless young soldier named Thomas Sankara launched a revolution that shook the foundations of neo-colonialism. With a voice that thundered through international halls and a vision that pierced beyond borders, Sankara rejected the global systems that kept Africa subservient. He renamed the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, and dared to dream of a continent that fed itself, and defined its own destiny. Today, that revolutionary spirit is rising again. Not in books or memories, but in the actions of another young soldier, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. At just 34, Traoré seized power in 2022, becoming the world's youngest head of state. In a country battling insurgency, instability, and foreign pressure, he has become something more than a military leader. He has become, for many, a torchbearer of Sankara's legacy. And across the streets of Ouagadougou, the message is becoming louder and clearer. Sankara is not dead. His spirit is alive in the voice, uniform, and decisions of Ibrahim. But how deep does this comparison really go? Is Traoré truly walking in Sankara's footsteps? Or are the echoes just surface level? To understand the present, we must return to the past, to the revolutionary fire that first lit the path. Thomas Sankara came to power in 1983 at just 33 years old. He was no ordinary soldier, charismatic, articulate, and fiercely intelligent. Sankara was not interested in ruling, he wanted to liberate. His coup was not a seizure of power for personal gain, but the beginning of a sweeping project to rebuild the nation from the ground up, with the people at its heart. He slashed his own salary, sold off the government's Mercedes-Benz fleet, banned luxury imports, and declared war on corruption. Ministers were instructed to fly economy, use modest vehicles, and live as the people did. Under Sankara's leadership, Burkina Faso witnessed one of the fastest mass vaccination campaigns. Over 2 million children were immunized against measles, meningitis, and yellow fever in a matter of weeks. Education was prioritized. School attendance surged. Local production was encouraged. Foreign aid was viewed not as support, but as a trap. He famously rejected World Bank loans and said, "He who feeds you, controls you." But Sankara didn't just want to fix Burkina Faso, he wanted to change Africa. He called for an African front against debt repayment, arguing that colonial powers had looted the continent for centuries and had no moral right to demand payment. His speeches to the Organization of African Unity were searing, calling out the complicity of African elites in maintaining neo-colonial systems. For women, Sankara's revolution was transformative. He outlawed forced marriages, polygamy, and female genital mutilation, and appointed women to leadership roles never before imagined in the region yet. In 1987, after only 4 years in power, Sankara was assassinated, betrayed from within, in a coup led by his once trusted friend, Blaise Compaoré, widely believed to have had support from external actors, especially France. The revolution was cut short, but the dream did not die. Fast forward to 2022, Burkina Faso is under siege once again, not from foreign troops this time, but from violent jihadist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The government is losing control. Thousands are dead. Over 2 million people have been displaced. Trust in leadership collapses, and into this chaos steps another young soldier, Ibrahim Traoré. He overthrows Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba, a fellow coup leader who had promised to fight terror but failed. Traoré claims he has no thirst for power. He says he wants to restore security, dignity, and sovereignty. The language sounds familiar. The people respond. In the streets, posters of Sankara appear alongside portraits of Traoré. Comparisons flood the airwaves and social media. And slowly, the world begins to pay attention. There are clear similarities. Both Traoré and Sankara took power at 33 and 34 years old. Both emerged from the military amid moments of national crisis. Both rejected foreign interference and positioned themselves as champions of African independence, just months into his rule. Traoré expelled French troops from Burkina Faso and terminated military agreements that had stood for decades. He called for the closure of French bases and moved Burkina closer to regional allies like Mali and Niger, both also led by military governments opposing Western influence. In their place, Traoré welcomed support from Russia, particularly the Africa Corps, a successor to the controversial Wagner Group. His message was simple: Burkina Faso will fight on its own terms with whoever respects its sovereignty. This new alliance, sometimes called the Sahel Axis, is part of a larger shift across the region. Military takeovers in Mali, Guinea, Niger, now Burkina Faso, are being described not simply as coups, but as corrective movements. And at the center of this wave, Ibrahim Traoré is emerging as a voice for a generation tired of dependency and deception. But beyond symbolism, there are real differences between Traoré and Sankara. Differences that matter. Sankara was a revolutionary socialist. His governance was rooted in Marxist ideals, people's committees, and a structured civilian-led reform agenda. He launched national campaigns for literacy, tree planting, gender equality, and economic self-sufficiency. His transformation plan touched every corner of society. Traoré, by contrast, is more of a nationalist than a socialist. His rhetoric is bold, his anti-imperialism clear. But his policy blueprint is far more focused on security and sovereignty than on social revolution. Traoré has ruled through a military-led transitional government. Civil society has had limited participation. Media freedoms are increasingly restricted. There are concerns over abuses by state-aligned volunteer forces and militias in the name of counter-terrorism. Though Traoré has promised elections, in the future, a clear timeline remains uncertain. Still, it would be unfair to expect identical paths. The conditions are different. While Sankara fought to free a nation from poverty and neo-colonial dependence, Traoré is governing during an active war on terrorism. His decisions are shaped by urgency, threat, and survival. What binds them together, perhaps more than anything else, is not ideology, but courage. Both men challenged the dominance of global powers. Both called for a united, self-reliant Africa. Both inspired hope in a time of despair. And both, for better or worse, reawakened the debate over who gets to shape Africa's future, its people or outsiders. Today, as thousands chant Traoré's name in the streets, as murals go up beside portraits of Sankara as students, read the speeches of 1984. Alongside the statements of 2024, a new chapter is being written. Whether it leads to rebirth or repeats old cycles depends on what Traoré chooses to do next. Will he open the door to civilian governance, to education, health, and equality, as Sankara did? Will he protect press freedoms and human rights? Or fall into the pattern of so many post-coup leaders who started with vision, but ruled with fear? Will the revolution continue, or be betrayed once again? One thing is certain: the spirit of Thomas Sankara was never buried. It lives in the soil of Burkina Faso. It breathes in the cries for sovereignty. It echoes in every young African demanding dignity. And now, it walks again through the boots, words, and actions of Captain Ibrahim Traoré.